G'day everyone, welcome to the How to Halo Reach ODST web series. This is of course tutorial part 3. My name's Andrew DFT, and of course in this tutorial we're going to be building the chest plate. This is the actual plate that sits on top of the chest that you built in episode 2. So by the end of the tutorial you should have one of these, and it should be nicely planted on and sitting on your chest plate like so. If I was to rate this, well, I'm going to anyway, I would rate it about a 4 out of 10. It does have a few little techniques that we're going to need to do quite carefully, such as this nice raise part, but you'll see that in the tutorial. But you will need to maybe make a few attempts at it just so you get it right. You don't want this piece being really flat, because it does have nice curves and we need to take advantage of the design. But enough talking, let's jump straight into it. Alright, so to kick things off, go ahead and print out the 2 templates. We only really need 1, but I put 2 in there, so we'll use 2 because we've got it at our disposal. Cut them in half once you've cut them out of the A4 piece of paper. Once you've done that, just grab some basic masking tape and, well, tape those together. I was going to say mask those together, but that's a different thing. Once you've done that, you can trace it out of the EVA foam. Nothing too difficult. Then, once you've traced it, go ahead, grab the craft knife and cut it out. Now what you can do is you can now grab your template, your initial template, and cut it into these 3 pieces. What we're going to do is grab the center piece, flip over the foam, and on the reverse flip side, trace out the center piece. The reason we're tracing out the center piece, as you can see those lines there, is because we're going to now kind of, what am I saying? We are heating up the foam, and we're going to fold these wing sides back. Because at the moment the foam is relatively flat, well actually it is completely flat, we're going to give it this nice curve. So as you can see here, I'm not drastically bending it, but I am bending enough to give it a nice kind of like turtle shell effect, so that way it curves around the design. This is going to give us a way more 3D aspect to it, especially once we build up the remaining detail. What you can do now is you can cut out this little kind of design piece that sits in the bottom of the wing. We can then transfer it onto the exact position on the foam, and then we can cut it out with a nice sharp craft blade. Once you've cut it out, you're going to grab that little design and actually slice it in half, because at the moment it's way too thick. We don't need it to be that thick, because we're going to hot glue it back into position, but on a lower layer. We've done this plenty of times in the previous tutorials, so this is just another one that you should be getting used to by now. Of course, do it to both of those sides, and you should starting to see the overall chest plate coming together. We can now then cut out this little tiny piece that's on the edge. You're gonna have to be very careful because it's a very small design, so just take your time. Once you've cut it out, trace it into position of where it actually should be on the foam, and then we're going to score it. Now remember from previous episodes, scoring is when you kind of cut into the foam a few millimeters. You're not cutting all the way through, you're just cutting enough so that when we heat it, the foam line will separate and give us this really nice design. Moving on, what you're going to do now is grab the centerpiece itself and trace out another copy onto the foam. This is going to be the top layer, because of course we want to make this look extremely layered to give it that better 3D perspective. Once we've done that and you've cut it out nicely, we're going to transfer these side panel things. I wouldn't know what you call them, but what you can do is grab the template and cut out each frame and then transfer it onto the foam, as you can see on screen. Nothing too difficult. Now I highly recommend at this point you do change your blade. If you did change it within the last 2 minutes, then well, you should be fine. But because we're going to be carving through the foam on an angle, as you can see here, you need to make sure that your blade is 100% as sharp as possible. If you don't have it sharp, it's going to tear at the foam, and you want this part to look the best you can possibly get it, because it's going to be the centerpiece of all the photos you take with this costume. But make sure that you aren't cutting all the way through the foam layer. You want to have a few millimeters on the bottom side, as you can see here on screen. Okay, so now let's start working on a few of these other little pieces that we're going to actually have to cut away from this center core. So what we can do is cut out this top part of the template, and then of course grab the pen and transfer that exact position onto the foam itself. Then grab your nice new sharp craft blade and actually cut that segment out. And then what we can do as well is grab your templates again and do the same, but on the bottom section of this center core. So you should now have these 2 top segments completely cut out, and it's starting to look pretty nice. What we can then do is give it a really nice thorough heat over, so that way the foam really condenses, all the fibers are pulled together, and it should look a lot smoother than it did before. So now we have two really good looking pieces which we are now going to have to bind. But before we do that, we need to cut out this line of small rectangle. Now this rectangle for scale, so you can see, is about that large on the actual piece itself. The reason we're cutting this out is because we want this foam chest plate to kind of bend over it. Now you're going to have to heat this up again, something wicked, because you need it to bend in 3 ways. As you can see here, I'm bending it on all angles around and over that central rectangle. Once you have heated up enough that it can bend, it should be glued down on all sides, so that way it sits flush and you will have this nice curved turtle shell effect. Okay, now we can work on these small wing level design things. It's a really weird title, but I have no idea what you call them. What you can do is you cut out your template like you can see on screen, and then going to transfer the two, because you'll need two. Make sure you flip them over as well, because you need the reverse sides. 2 pieces of whatever we titled them before onto the foam, then cut out the foam. Now what you're going to do is you can see these 2 lines. What we're going to do is cut away the template and slowly transfer it across onto the foam designs itself. And then of course, like we did before, you're going to score these lines so that way when we heat it up, it leaves a nicer, thicker looking design in the end. Remembering not to cut all the way through the foam, as that will cause you problems down the line, and then giving it a nice thorough heat over. Then should really be easy enough to just glue it straight into position, because the templates were correct. They should just slot in nicely, and that pretty much just completes the design. But we're not done just yet. We do need to cut out 2 rectangles like you can see on screen, and that's the size if you're wondering about how big you should make them. This is going to allow us to stick the chest plate onto the actual chest armor itself. The reason we are cutting out these 2 segments is to raise it, because we have that nice curve on the chest plate. We want to keep that. If we were to stick it down without those 2 rectangles, you just have a flat chest plate. This allows it to sit nicely. Now as you can see, we have it sitting right above this kind of hexagon looking design, and then up at top it should be sitting just below the neck ridge. That's how you know where exactly it should fit on your chest armor. But that pretty much wraps up that chest plate. So that's it. Hopefully you guys managed to follow along and you didn't get too hunkered down, and that you actually did realize the kind of techniques needed to make this chest plate. Once it's on, it can just stay on forever, and of course now you can build up extra things. As you can see on mine, I've already got a magnum, well, I have a magnum placed here, as well as a few pouches that go in this section here. That's completely up to you. If you want to do that, you can, but that was just my own design that I went with. You guys are allowed to customize, and I push you to customize and personalize your own costume, because that's what makes it unique as your own personal design. So you're 3 episodes in, so you should now have this chest plate, and the helmet. So it should be looking quite nice and slowly getting there on your way to your full costume. So that wraps up episode 3. Now you can go check out episode 4, which is the lower ab section, as well as the butt plate that we will build in that tutorial. Otherwise, my name's Andrew DFT. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you later.